When Veronica sent fake cops to collect $3,200 in fees, I refused and pulled out my grandfather's deed. Turns out the HOA office itself sat on my land. With neighbors' evidence, old permits, and video proof, I exposed her trespassing, fraud, and theft, turning her empire into a federal case. That's when I knew I wasn't just fighting for my property. I was fighting for justice. My name is Elias Grayson, and this is my story. It started with a postcard, not a threatening letter, not a legal notice, not even a certified envelope with red tape, just a glossy, professionally designed postcard that landed in my mailbox on a quiet Tuesday morning in late September. The kind of day where the sun filters through the pines like liquid gold, and the air smells like damp earth and wood smoke. I've been up since dawn splitting firewood, my hands calloused, my breath visible in the crisp mountain air. I opened the mailbox expecting a catalog or a flyer from a hardware store in town. Instead, I found a postcard that read, "Your property is scheduled for a real estate showing this Saturday at 2 p.m. Buyers are interested in rustic mountain cabins. Please ensure access is available. Lakeside Pines HOA." I stared at it. Then I laughed, a dry, humorless chuckle that echoed off the cabin walls. Showing. I muttered, turned the card over. On the back was a photo of my cabin, my actual cabin, with a red tin roof and a hand-carved porch swing I'd built myself, captioned, "Charming one-bed log cabin in gated community. Turnkey investment opportunity." There was even a price tag, $395,000. I stood there, frozen, the postcard trembling in my hand. My blood went cold, then hot, then cold again. My cabin, my home, was being shown to strangers? As if I didn't live here? As if I didn't own it? I walked back inside, boots clomping on the porch, and went straight to the filing cabinet in the corner of the living room. I pulled out the thick manila envelope labeled Land Grayson. Inside were decades of documents. My grandfather's original deed from 1947, my father's will, the transfer papers when I inherited the property in 2016, and every tax receipt I'd ever paid. I laid them out on the table like a poker hand, and I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that something was very, very wrong, because I didn't belong to any HOA. Not officially, not legally, not by choice. And yet, for the past 3 years, I've been getting notices, fines, and community assessments from the Lakeside Pines Homeowners Association. At first, I ignored them. I figured it was a clerical error, some database mix-up, but they kept coming. $150 for gate maintenance, $75 for landscaping compliance, $200 for architectural review after I replaced my gutters, and last month, $3,200 in back dues and penalties. I'd paid nothing, not a dime, because I didn't owe them a dime. The land had been in my family since before the subdivision existed. My grandfather, Elias Grayson, bought 42 acres of timberland in the Blue Ridge Mountains in 1947 for $800 in cash and a promise to plant 100 pine saplings a year. He built the cabin by hand, using logs from a property and stone from a creek. He never sold a foot of that land. When he passed in 1982, it went to my father, who kept it quiet, lived off-grid, and avoided bureaucracy like the plague. When he died in 2016, I inherited it all, deed, title, and silence. I didn't know about the HOA until 2020. That's when the first letter came. "Dear property owner, as a resident of Lakeside Pines, you are required to comply with community standards." I called the number listed. A woman answered, efficient, clipped tone. "Lakeside Pines HOA. This is Veronica. How can I help?" "I don't live in an HOA," I said. "I own my land outright." There was a pause. Then, "All properties within the Lakeside Pines development are governed by the HOA. Your parcel is listed in our registry." "That's impossible," I said. "My grandfather bought this land in 1947. There was no development then." "Development began in 1998, she replied coolly. "Your property is within the platted boundaries. You're required to pay dues and follow our rules." I hung up, stunned. I drove to the county recorder's office the next day, pulled the plat maps. Sure enough, there it was, a subdivision called Lakeside Pines, platted in 1998, enclosing nearly all of my grandfather's original 42 acres. But when I looked closer, really looked, I noticed something odd. The plat map had been drawn around my cabin, not over it. The legal description listed adjacent lots, 17A, 17B, 18 but not mine. My property, according to the deed, was Lot 0, a non-conforming parcel excluded from the development. The map even had a tiny notation in the corner. Exempt, Grayson family tract, no HOA jurisdiction. I took photos, made copies, called Veronica back. This is Lot 0. I said, it's not part of your HOA. It's excluded. That notation is outdated, she said. The HOA now governs all properties within the boundary lines for maintenance and safety. You're benefiting from our services. Road plowing, security, gate access. You can't opt out. Then I opt into paying taxes. I shot back, which I do, every year, to the county, not to you. She didn't answer, just said, you'll receive a notice of delinquency next month. And she did. I ignored it. Then came the fines. For unapproved exterior paint, I'd stained the logs with cedar preservative. For vegetation overgrowth, a patch of blackberries I'd left with birds. For failure to display HOA decal, I didn't even have a car decal. Each notice got more aggressive, each demand higher. And then the postcard about the real estate showing. That's when I snapped. I walked down to the gate, the old iron gate my grandfather had welded shut in 1953 and had only opened twice in 10 years, and I locked it, not just with a chain and padlock, but with a new, industrial-grade deadbolt I installed that afternoon. I welded a steel plate over the latch. Then I climbed the hill behind the cabin and pulled an old wooden sign from the shed, hand-painted, faded, but still legible. Private property. No trespassing. This land is not for sale. I nailed it to a post at the entrance, right in front of the HOA's Welcome to Lakeside Pine sign. And I set up a camera. Not a fancy one. Just an old trail cam I used for hunting, mounted on a tree, pointed at the gate. I armed it with a full battery and a 128 gigabytes card. I wasn't going to let them show my home like a vacant Airbnb. Saturday came. At 1:47 p.m., a white SUV with a Premier Mountain Realty magnet pulled up. A woman in a blazer and heels stepped out, followed by a man in a polo shirt. The woman checked her phone, then walked to the gate. She rattled the lock. Then she called someone. 5 minutes later, another vehicle arrived, this one unmarked, black, with tinted windows. 2 men in dark uniforms got out. They didn't wear badges, but they had radios, holstered guns, and stern faces. The realtor pointed at the gate. One of the men pulled out a master key. I was watching from the cabin window, my heart pounding. They had a key. They unlocked my gate. I grabbed my phone, hit record, and ran outside. Stop. I shouted, stepping onto the porch with my camera rolling. This is private property. You don't have permission to enter. The man with the key turned. We're with Lakeside Security. We have authority to access all properties in the community. This is not your community. I said, walking down the steps, phone held high. This is my land. I own it. I didn't invite you. Leave now. The other man reached for his radio. We're calling the sheriff. No, I said, stepping forward. I'm calling the sheriff. And I'm reporting trespassing, unauthorized entry, and impersonating law enforcement. The realtor backed away, pulling out her phone. The 2 security men hesitated, then retreated to their vehicle. But not before I got their plates, their faces, and their fake badges on video. I filed a police report that afternoon. The deputy who took it, Jim Holloway, a guy I'd known since high school, listened quietly, then said, Elias, those guys aren't cops. They're private security. But if they use a key and enter without consent, that's trespassing. I'll look into it. Good, I said. And while you're at it, check this. The HOA claims I owe $3,200. But I don't belong to the HOA. My land was excluded from the plat. He raised an eyebrow. I'll check the records. 2 days later, he called. Elias, you're right. Your property is Lot 0. It's legally separate from the HOA. They have no jurisdiction over you. Then why are they finding me? Sending realtors? Sending fake cops? That, he said slowly, is a good question. That's when I decided to dig deeper. I started with public records. I went back to the county office and pulled every document related to Lakeside Pines. The original plat, the covenants, the bylaws, the board minutes, the tax rolls. And I found something strange. The HOA had been incorporated in 1998. Yes, but the land it claimed to govern wasn't fully deeded to the association. In fact, most of the parcels were still individually owned. The HOA didn't own the roads, the gate, or the common areas. It just managed them. But who gave them that right? I dug further. Found a series of easements, granted by homeowners in the late 90s to allow road access and utility lines. But nothing about an HOA taking ownership or control. Then I found it. A document from 2003. A special warranty deed transferring a 1.2-acre parcel, parcel ID 7742 to 2009, from various property owners to Lakeside Pines HOA Incorporated. But the signers? Not the homeowners. Not the county. Not even a notary. Just a single name, Veronica Dale, listed as authorized representative. And the property description? It included the exact coordinates of the HOA's office building, a small, modern structure near the entrance of the development, the building where Veronica worked, the building she lived in, according to neighbors, the building that, according to deed, was now owned by the HOA. But here's the kicker. The various property owners who supposedly sold that land, their names weren't listed. No signatures. No witness lines. Just a blanket transfer signed solely by Veronica. That's not legal. That's fraud. I made copies. Dozens of them. Then I started talking to neighbors. Most were afraid to speak. She'll fine us. One woman whispered at the grocery store. She controls the gate codes. She knows things. But a few weren't afraid. Old man Harlan, who'd lived there since 2000, showed me his original purchase contract. They told us the HOA would maintain the roads, he said. But we never agreed to give up land. Never signed anything about that office. Another neighbor, Maria, had kept records. She'd been fined $1,800 for unapproved fence repairs. She'd paid under protest. I have emails, she said. She threatened to send enforcement officers if I didn't. And did they come? I asked twice. Wore uniforms. Carried guns. But when I asked to see their licenses, they left. I asked if I could use her emails, her records. She agreed. I compiled everything. Deeds, emails, photos, video, tax records, neighbor statements. And I noticed a pattern. Every fine, every threat, every security visit, they escalated when someone questioned Veronica. And the money? It wasn't going to road repairs or gate maintenance. I checked the HOA's financial statements, publicly available through the state. They reported $180,000 in annual revenue. But their expenses? $42,000. Where did the rest go? Then I found bank records obtained through a public records request, showing monthly transfers from the HOA account to a personal LLC, VD Holdings LLC. Owner, Veronica Dale. Amount, $8,000 per month. For management services. No contract. No board approval. No oversight. I had enough. But I didn't go to the county. Not yet. I went to the gate. And I posted a new sign, bigger, bolder, printed on steel. Warning. This property is not part of Lakeside Pines HOA. Any attempt to enter, sell, or collect fees is unlawful. Violators will be prosecuted. I added my phone number, and I waited. 3 days later, a letter arrived, not from the HOA, from a law firm. Mr. Grayson, your actions constitute defamation and interference with business operations. Cease and desist all false claims about Lakeside Pines HOA and its leadership. Failure to comply will result in legal action. I laughed. Then I did something bold. I posted the letter, redacted only the firm's address, on a local community Facebook group. Added my video of the fake cops. Attach the deed, the plat map, the financial records. I wrote, "This HOA is a scam. They're fining people illegally, sending armed men to homes, stealing land. And the woman in charge? She's been siphoning money for years. If you've been fined, threatened, or lied to, message me. Let's fight back together." The response was instant. Messages flooded in. Over 40 homeowners reached out. Stories poured in. They fined me $500 for painting my front door blue. They sent a tow truck to my cousin's house because his visitor parked past 8 p.m. I found out they sold a strip of my backyard for the walking trail. No permission. I paid $2,000 in back dues because I was scared. And then the bombshell. A retired surveyor named Dale Thompson came forward. He'd worked on the original plat in 1998. "I remember the Grayson tract," he said. Silas was still alive. He refused to sell. The developers had to work around him. Lot 0 was excluded on purpose. But in 2005, someone came in my office, Veronica Dale, and asked for a revised plat. I refused. It would have been illegal. Did she get one anyway? I asked. He nodded. I heard she went to a different surveyor. Unlicensed. Paid in cash. Got a fake revision drawn up. That's the map they've been using. I obtained a copy. It was a forgery. The county seal was wrong. The dates mismatched. The surveyor's license number didn't exist. And on that fake map, Lot 0 was included in the HOA boundaries. That's how they justified finding me. That's how they claimed authority. Fraud. Plain and simple. I compiled everything into a 78-page dossier. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I walked into the U.S. Attorney's office in Asheville, and I handed it to a federal investigator. I told him everything. The fake cops, the forged maps, the stolen land, the embezzlement, the threats. He listened, took notes, then said, "This isn't just a local dispute, Mr. Grayson. This is racketeering, fraud, theft of property, possibly wire fraud. If they use email to threaten people. Can you help?" I asked. "We'll open an investigation," he said, "but we'll need more. Video, testimony, bank records." I gave him everything, and then I waited. 2 months passed. Then, on a rainy Thursday morning, I woke to sirens. I stepped onto the porch. Federal agents in tactical gear surrounded the HOA office. Veronica was let out in handcuffs. Charges: federal mail fraud, wire fraud, theft of property, impersonating law enforcement, conspiracy, and racketeering. The building? Seized, because it was built on stolen land, my land. The investigation revealed more. The security team? Hired from a private firm in Atlanta, armed without proper licensing, trained to intimidate. The $3,200 they demanded from me, part of over $1.2 million in fraudulent fees collected from homeowners over 15 years. And the kicker? The HOA office wasn't just on my land. It was on Lot 0. The deed I'd shown them? Still valid. The forged plat? Invalid. The HOA? Dissolved by court order. And me? I didn't sue for money. I sued for truth. I filed a civil action to reclaim the land under the office, to expose every illegal fine, to force the return of stolen funds to homeowners. And I won. In court, the judge called it one of the most brazen cases of private governance abuse he'd ever seen. Veronica got 5 years in federal prison. The security team, charged with impersonation and weapons violations. And the homeowners? They formed a new, transparent association, elected board, public budgets, no fines without due process. And me? I still live in a cabin. I still split my own firewood. I still sit on the porch at dusk, watching the mist rise off the hills. But now there's a new sign at the gate. Not angry, not defensive, just the truth. Grayson Land, EST 1947. Owned, protected, free. This isn't just my story. It's a warning. Across America, fake HOAs are popping up. Unincorporated, unregulated, unchecked. They fine, threaten, and steal with impunity. They exploit fear, silence, and ignorance. But you don't have to accept it. If you're being fined illegally, fight back. If they send security to your door, record it. If they say you owe money, demand proof. Pull out your deed. Know your land. Know your rights. And if you need help, visit GraysonDefense.org. That's my site. I've posted all the documents, the templates, the steps I took. Free to download. Free to use. Because no one should lose their home to a scam. No one should live in fear of a woman with a clipboard and a fake badge. I stood on my land. I stood on my truth. And I won. Now it's your turn. Stand. Fight. Reclaim what's yours.